Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel, and welcome back to Shamrock Valley. This is episode number 2, or at least it's the second episode in this series, sort of the reboot of the Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel. And I see there's a cargo ship. Looks like it's heading out to sea there. Beautiful view here. And I think I said something in the first episode, and I want to kind of go back and perhaps correct what I said. I had made indication that this map sort of reminded me of Colborough Park Farm, as well as Thornton Farm, and it certainly does. But I also think that I might have, if I mentioned a third map, I meant to say Sandy Bay. If I said something else, my apologies. That is not what I meant. I actually meant Sandy Bay is kind of what it reminds me of. I played Sandy Bay a little bit sort of offline, never made a series out of it, and but quite enjoyed it. So what we're going to do today in this second episode is we are going to go down and we're going to seed, I believe it is field number 3, if I bring up the larger map here and try not to run over that sign. Yeah, field number 3. It's over there sort of behind the church. And by the way, we've got our animals all fed and they're all fat and happy. We've got sheep and we've got cows on this map. That's all we're going to do for right now. The pigs, if you're not familiar with Shamrock Valley, let me just bring up the map here. The pigs are over on the other farm, Scatterbrook Farm, and we'll head over there later in a future episode because we're going to need to plant field number 38. Field number 38 is one of the other fields that you get as part of the map here. And we'll need to head over there and fertilize that, plow that, and plant that in something. And of course, just as a reminder, I know all of you longtime listeners, at least since the Seasons mod came out in beta a long time ago, you guys are so used to me playing with the Seasons mod, and I just want to remind everyone that I'm not doing that this go around, simply because, well, I just kind of wanted a bit of a change, and that's just kind of how we're going to go with things. I certainly don't expect the Seasons mod to be available for Farm Sim 19 right out of the gate, so it's good practice to kind of get back into things, and sort of that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get this guy here unfolded, and I also wanted to apologize because sort of after the fact of recording episode number 1, I realized we're going to do wheat in this field. Let me just double check that because let's see what we've got going on here. Field number 1 is barley. I've already planted that field, so we're going to do barley there. We're going to do wheat here, and yeah, we're going to have a good time doing this. But anyway, that is sort of the deal with the Seasons mod. But I did realize after recording and updating or editing episode number 1, I realized that my audio levels were a little bit off. I think my game sound was a little hot, and my audio, my verbal, my speech to you was a bit low. So it's funny because I did not make any changes from when I had recorded before, but it's possible that something might have changed, a Windows update or something might have bumped the game audio up just a little bit. That kind of stuff happens. Windows updates are still a very scary process, I've got to say, because it can really wreak havoc with your systems, especially these Windows 10 updates. But I want to tell you, and I actually had made note of this to share this with you all many months ago before I actually took my 3-month hiatus. But if you're running Windows 10 or even maybe Windows 7 as well, I never really did this with Windows 7 because the updates weren't as destructive as what they have been with Windows 10, at least for me personally. But with Windows 10, I have made a habit of creating a restore point before installing any major updates or changes to anything, and especially before taking Microsoft updates. So if I see that there's an update available for Windows 10, I will create a restore point. I just date it, that particular date in which I create the restore point, and then go ahead and apply the update. And should anything sort of go haywire with that update, I should be able to fall back to that particular point in time, that date. Of course, that may not necessarily fully resolve the issue, because obviously Windows 10 is going to try to update itself again. I really don't like that about Windows 10. I wish that we had a little bit more control to say, oh, no, you're not. No, you're not going to do that. I don't want that update. I don't want to do that. But I don't think we have the ability to do that, at least not without a whole lot of hacking. I know that there's, I mean, you can certainly turn it off. You can say, I don't want to take updates, but as soon as you reboot, boom, they're right back there. So what I wanted to do is I will just throw this out there, because you guys are going to see this video possibly next week, and I'm recording this on Friday night. So I had recorded episode 1 on Thursday night, and yes, I'm sort of doing back-to-back videos. I have no idea when this episode is going to air, but I did want to go ahead and say that today, actually last Friday, the September the 7th, Giants produced or released their very first, what are they calling that? Let me just bring up my blog site right here for a second while I'm talking and looking at my other computer that's sitting over here. Come on. The Fact Sheet Friday. If you guys remember with FarmSim 17, Giants did a really good job hyping up the release of FarmSim 17. They also did that with some of the DLC packs that they released for 17. Now, of course, as I've said before, I sort of came onto FarmSim 15 after it had already been out for about 2 months, I think it was. So I don't really know if they did the whole hype and everything with the fact sheets and stuff like that before 15 was released, but certainly they did it with 17, and they started that a couple of months before the release date. And of course 19 is coming out a little bit off schedule from what we have been kind of accustomed to with the release of the new versions of Farming Simulator, but it is what it is, and that's just something that we're going to have to deal with and go with. Otherwise, we don't have much change there. But anyway, with last weekend, or last Friday was the 7th of September. This, of course, is the 14th of September. Funny how that works. But they released their Fact Sheet Fridays, and so I created a blog post today and released that. I wrote that over my lunch break, and just sort of my opinions, my ideas as far as what these fact sheets or the information that's in these fact sheets sort of mean to me. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do, and I think maybe we should have put another headline there, but that's okay. And so I've got some comments and some commentary and everything with these, and so I invite you to go to my website, grizzlybearsims.com, and read that, and I'll probably talk a little bit about some of these updates and sort of my opinions of these things and everything as we sort of go along with these episodes. But with this episode number 2, I kind of thought I would fill you all in, all my good friends, on our vacation to Europe that we just got back from actually a week ago today. Reminded my darling wife as we were having dinner just about an hour or so ago. I sort of reminded her, I said, hey, do you realize what you were doing this time last week? And of course it was right around the time that we had arrived in Denver on our flight, our British Airways flight from London Heathrow. We got into Denver about 5:30 on Friday afternoon, the 7th of September, and we were basically standing in the customs line, or not the customs line, the customs line, coming in through immigration, I suppose, and having to wait for that. So I'm going to stand on my soapbox for just a little bit, and I understand that I've got listeners or viewers from all over the world, and I really appreciate you guys watching my channel and watching my episodes. I really, really do. And as I have pointed out, my wife and I, we travel to Europe about once every 2 years. And something, when I go through passport control, say at London Heathrow or in Antwerp, Belgium, or in Brussels, Belgium, or anywhere else that we happen to travel, there's a line for essentially Euro passport control. So anyone that is a European citizen that has a European passport goes through one line, and then essentially everybody else goes through another line. And something I fully understand, that when I am visiting another country like Belgium or like the United Kingdom, I go through that other line, Now, my wife, she comes with me through that line, because obviously usually the Euro passport line goes a little quicker, because I think essentially all they're really doing is showing their passport, and they're getting waved right through the way it should be. So my soapbox complaint session here is, if any of you all American citizens, I'm talking about either American citizens or say green card holders, which my wife is a green card holder. That's how she lives here. If you have you gone through international passport control coming back into the U.S. Recently? And let me tell you, man, it is a pain in the backside. Let me tell you, I had to go through 2 different checkpoints just to get back into my own country, and again, I expect no special favors when I'm outside of my country as far as going through immigration and passport control and whatnot. I don't, if it takes a little bit longer, it takes a little bit longer. But to get back into my own country, I believe that all I should really have to do is show my passport and walk right through. I mean, I am a natural-born U.S. citizen, and I'm not on my soapbox ring, or I'm not trying to brag about that. I'm just simply stating a point that in other places it's so much easier for citizens of those countries or those regions to get back into their country than it is here. We actually have to fill out paperwork, a landing card. I shouldn't have to do that to get back into my own country. But anyway, I digress. So let's talk about vacation. So my wife and I left on vacation actually 3 weeks ago. Because we've been back home a week, and we were away for about 2 weeks and 2 days, I believe it was. And we left for vacation. We flew out from Denver to London Heathrow on British Airways 747. And let me tell you, as an airplane aviation sort of enthusiast, a nut and everything, however you want to refer to me on that, I absolutely adore the 747. The Queen of the Skies is what she's called, and actually absolutely adore it. And United Airlines retired their last 747-400 a few months ago, and it actually came through Denver kind of on its farewell tour. British Airways still has a fairly large number of 747-400s. They're not taking advantage of the Dash 8s that some airlines are using, like Lufthansa, I think, are going to use a few of the 747-8s. But anyway, so the 747-400 is a dream machine to fly on, and so we left Denver, and it was actually, we were 2 hours late because the aircraft itself was 2 hours late departing London Heathrow, so obviously it got here 2 hours late. And of course, it takes the same amount of time to get these things ready to fly again. So in other words, there's not a whole lot of time-saving things that they can do on the ground as far as loading fuel and cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So we were still 2 hours departing late, and but we managed to make that time up, and I think we landed in London Heathrow about 15 minutes after our originally scheduled arrival time. We had a strong tailwind pretty much the entire way. At one point, they have those little map screens on the on the video systems, and I was watching that. And at one point in time, we were traveling over 1,000 kilometers per hour, about 750 miles per hour, I believe, taking advantage of that very strong tailwind. And I tell you, we made that time up, and like I said, we were about 15 minutes late arriving at the Heathrow, and I really don't think that was due to not being able to make up that time. I think it was just so happened that, Heathrow is a busy airport. It's quite a busy airport to only have 2 runways, and so I just think that we held, I think, for just a few minutes, and then was able to land. But anyway, so we got there, everything pretty much uneventful from that point. We had to transfer across town, across London, over to London City Airport and fly what my wife refers to as a Flintstone plane. A Flintstone plane, if you're familiar with the Flintstones, they have to pedal their little car to make it go. Well, she sort of jokes and says that we have to pedal with our feet and flap our arms to get the little airplane to fly. It's like I said, it's a little puddle jumper. It's actually a Fokker 50. If you're an aviation enthusiast, you might be familiar with that aircraft. Well, we left London City and we got into Antwerp as scheduled, as planned, and made it to my mother and father-in-law's house and had dinner. And it was probably by the time we got there, got settled and everything, it was pushing fairly close to 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And so we had dinner and then pretty much hit the hay. I was pretty much exhausted, and so was my wife. And so woke up the next morning, and I certainly could have slept another 10 hours or so, I think. At least that's what my body was begging me to do. But you kind of got to get up, and you got to force your body clock to get back into its rhythm and its what it wants to do, because obviously if you sleep really late, then that's going to mess you up the next evening. And so we got up, and I took a shower. And that's nothing strange, I suppose. But one thing, if you are not familiar with European and British houses and everything, things are much smaller than what maybe we're accustomed to here. And quite honestly, my wife and I, we have a really large house. Our master bathroom is huge. We've got a huge walk-in glass shower. 3 or 4 people could stand in there if they wanted to. And plenty of room and everything. And so my mother and father-in-law's shower is actually quite small. It's about the size of maybe like 3 feet by 3 feet, if it's even that. It might even be a little tighter than that as far as width and everything. And it's the shower head coming off the wall is a little bit lower. I'm 6 feet tall, and so I have to kind of stoop just a little bit. And so I'm thinking that a 9-hour plane ride or 8-hour plane ride from Denver to London, and then all the 5-hour delay in London, and then the small cramped airplane to Antwerp, and then just the fact that I'm a little bit older this particular time around. Well, next thing you know, I start feeling a cramp in my left shoulder. In my left side of my chest, my left shoulder, my left arm. It's sort of radiating down my left arm. And actually I found it very painful to breathe, to take like a deep breath, because every time I would try to take a deep breath, obviously your lungs cause your chest to fill up with air, and it expands or whatever. I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, so I think you can kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. And so I tell my wife, I'm having chest pains. I don't know, I feel okay as far as everything else is concerned. I wasn't nauseous and I wasn't lightheaded or anything like that. It just hurt. Well, my mother-in-law is a retired nurse, and so my wife had already kind of freaked out a little bit, because obviously she's like, oh my gosh, your left arm is hurting, your left side is hurting. Are you possibly having a heart attack? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But, so anyway, my mother-in-law pulled out her blood pressure meter and everything. everything, because obviously my father-in-law is about 82 years old, and so he's got some health problems just due to age, and so she monitors his vitals and everything from time to time. And so she set me down at the dining room table and took my blood pressure, and it was high. It was very, very high. And so she sort of got a little bit uneasy, which further upset my wife, and kind of that sort of spread over into how I was feeling. And next thing you know, my mother-in-law is calling a taxi, because we figured that was the quickest way to get to the emergency room. So on my first day, my first full day in Belgium for this particular vacation, I'm going to an Antwerp hospital, an Antwerp hospital emergency room. So we get there, and of course, pretty much universal. Anytime you walk into an ER and you mention chest pains and shortness of breath and hurts to breathe and that sort of stuff, they're gonna pretty much bend over backwards to get you into a bed and get things hooked up to you, EKGs and all that kind of stuff. And so they got me back within fairly short fashion. It was maybe like 5 minutes, from the time I walked in the door until I was actually in a cubicle with EKG things on my chest and all that kind of stuff. Well, long story short, because obviously it's going to take me a couple of episodes to probably tell you everything about all the highlights of our vacation, I'll just tell you the low points of it first, get that out of the way in this episode. Well, anyway, again, long story short, I'm okay. I wasn't having a heart attack. They did an EKG, which came back fine. They also, because of the fact that I had just come off of a long international flight, they did an x-ray of my chest just to make sure I didn't have any sort of issues with my lungs. They also did some blood work just to make sure that I didn't have air in my bloodstream. Not really sure what all that means, but basically I got a pretty good workup done. My insurance, I got the best insurance in the world through my work, and so I think all this is going to end up costing us about $25 for copay, and everything else is going to be covered. So that's kind of the long story short with that. But let's see, we're about 22 minutes. I think what I'm going to do is we're going to take some stuff down to the animals. Let me go to this animal page here, and then I guess I was going in the right direction in the first place. Let's take some silage down there and take care of that. So this little John Deere telehandler, excellent little telehandler. I've got to thank my buddy Eustace Farmer for basically modding this and getting this to me. I really appreciate that, EP. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Manitou was one of my favorites, but I've since, I believe I can since say that this John Deere is now my favorite. So anyway, we'll take 4 down there. So anyway, what I was saying is that I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm not gonna die, at least not yet. And so that really, set things off on sort of a bad foot for the first day and everything. But eventually that all, the chest pain and everything went away. It must have just been a pulled muscle or something. But, and I think my wife, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go to the ER. Obviously, I'm a stubborn guy. I'll raise my hand and admit to that. As I guess probably most guys are, unless you're in the medical profession, then you probably are saying, no, I did the right thing. But of course, I didn't want to do it because, it's our vacation, and I had a vision of, I'm going to spend the entire weekend in an emergency room, and I didn't want to have to do that. But my wife was right in the sense that, she's like, Jerry, she says, you would have because it was a couple of days before the pain got to a point to where that it really didn't hurt much anymore. And she's right. I would have basically worried about it every time I had a little twitch or something of pain. I would have thought, okay, well, this is going to be the last breath I take or something. And so she's like, it was right to go and get checked out and everything. And so we're all good. I'm all good. And so really and truthfully, I've got to say that the weather was fantastic. If you are obviously if you're from Europe, if you're watching this from Europe or the United Kingdom, you know that it's been a very hot summer. I think it's actually warming back up again. But anyway, our trip the timing was perfect. It was probably, and I'm going to go with Fahrenheit numbers here because that's just kind of the value system that I am used to. Believe that for the most part our temperatures were in the low to mid 70s in the daytime. We had just a little bit of rain on a couple of days while we were in Belgium, but it didn't really hamper anything that we were doing because either it was the rest day, which was Saturday, or it was another day when we were going by train down to Ypres, Belgium, and I'll tell you all about that a little bit later in another episode. That's really cool. And while we were in the UK, it was a little warmer in the UK than potentially it was in Belgium, but it all worked out, and saw some really great things. Saw some things that I had not had the opportunity to see before. We kind of went to a couple of different places that had not been to before. Dover Castle was one, so we went down to Dover for the day. We went down to a place called Rye, and if you are familiar with that area of England, it's down in the southeast portion of England. That is just a fantastic little town, little place. Cobblestone streets is kind of what it's famous for, and it's just a fantastic little place. Well, okay, we're coming up on 27 minutes here, and I think what I'll do is when we come back together for episode number 3, I will obviously I've gotten all this health stuff out of the way, and again, just to reiterate, I'm fine, everything is fine, so no worries there. Of course, my wife, she did, bless her heart, she got another sinus infection while she was there. Thankfully, her doctor, her ENT, had prescribed her antibiotics just in case, and of course my wife is very very good about things like that. She would not have taken them or abused it or anything like that had she not got sick, but she did. And I don't know, she didn't get a cold or anything, but maybe just the flight or whatever, she really started feeling pretty rotten, and so it was a good thing that she had that medication. I think, and I don't know for sure, but I think it's just, she's going to have to just live with this, with the occasional sinus infections and everything, just because of the way that it is. But anyway, so when we come back together for episode number 3, I will fill you in on kind of the things that we did in Belgium. I'll talk a little bit about Ypres, Belgium, and then kind of scoot through some of the UK stuff, some of the England and London stuff that we did, and then I'm going to share some thoughts on Farm Sim 19 in the coming episodes, and just anything and everything else that I can maybe think of to talk about, and just kind of get back in the groove of things with episodes. And I'm really enjoying playing this map, and I don't think I've actually opened this up. Let's see if there's anything in here that I haven't seen, and there's not. So anyway, without further ado, and before I get myself trapped into this shed, I'm going to just wrap things up and say thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the kind comments from that you all left on episode number 1. Just to remind you all, check out my website, grizzlybearsims.com. If you see a mod that you sort of like, I have an extensive mod spreadsheet, and I'm gearing up to do the same for FarmSim 19. So as mods are released for FarmSim 19, I will certainly document that in the mod spreadsheet. So if you see a mod, that's where you're going to find the link to it. And then secondarily to that, I've got some information there from Flight Sim, Truck Sim, Farm Sim, and of course I've got my commentary and my opinion pieces on what I think about Farm Sim 19 and some of the information that's come out about that. And then also the Discord channel for both my own Discord server, Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel, but also the Simulation Gaming Society that was founded by myself, Doug Zorley Gaming, and Eustace Farmer. So the three of us, the three amigos, we founded that group and put that Discord server together, and you can come over there and engage with us. Yeah, so that's really it. And of course, check out all my friends that I have listed down below in the show notes. And I appreciate you guys watching. And yeah, more is coming. So until then, take care of yourselves and also of each other. And God bless you all. We'll see you down the road here on Shamrock Valley. Bye-bye for now.